Welcome back to music. In our next several lessons, we're going to examine the elements of music to grow our understanding of music in the world around us. This lesson will focus on tempo and dynamics. Ultimately, we're going to look at 6 music elements, 2 over the next 3 lessons. Dynamics and tempo will be the focus of this lesson. Our second lesson will involve rhythm and pitch. And finally, a third lesson will examine melody and form. Please read this slide with me as I read it aloud. The elements of music are critical components of the performing and listening experience. A musician builds a musical experience by interpreting the various symbols and terminology employed by a composer or songwriter. Careful consideration of each element generates interest and emotion for a listener. You can think of the music elements as Legos. We use many different shapes and sizes to build a representation of a building or a sports car or something even more detailed. Without one of those elements, our Lego structure would be incomplete. The elements of music occur simultaneously, meaning that while a discussion about music may focus on one element only, several music elements are at work during any given musical moment. A musical phrase may be played quickly, which is tempo, but the same phrase might also be played loudly, dynamics, and the tones may sound high, which is pitch. For the purpose of the next listening samples, we'll be listening only to dynamics, the volume of the music, or how loud and quiet the music is performed. When a composer needs to indicate the volume they intend for a performer to use, they use the terms that you see on this slide. Piano indicates to play the music quietly. Mezzo piano indicates medium quiet. Mezzo forte indicates medium loud. And forte indicates that the music should be played loudly. If there is a crescendo in the music, the intention is for the music to gradually become louder. But if there is a decrescendo, it means that the intention is for the music to gradually become quieter. In the parentheses, you also notice symbols that would be placed in the music. The symbols allow the musician to interpret things without having to get overwhelmed by the amount of text that's on the page in front of them. So mezzo forte, for instance, would just be represented by a lowercase m and a lowercase letter f. Dynamic terms can easily be associated with common events. For instance, piano can be thought of as a musical whisper. Continuing with the speech association, mezzo piano could be thought of as a library voice, mezzo forte as a full speaking voice, and forte as a shouting voice. Now let's listen to a forte sample. This is one of the loudest music examples ever. It incorporates live cannons and fireworks. So in that performance, we were able to see a forte representation. In the next performance, we'll listen to a piano representation, or something quiet. It's important to know that in this song, we're actually going to compare a few dynamic levels to figure out how a composer used dynamics to keep a performance very interesting for the listener. So the music will begin relatively quietly, and then you'll notice a phrase repeated even quieter. All right, moving right along, we'll examine a crescendo. Remember, a crescendo means that the music is gradually becoming louder. A crescendo a lot of times can create some energy and maybe even some tension in some music. And now we'll enter a focus on tempo, the speed of the music, how fast or slow the beat of the music is. The list of terms here would also appear in the music. Largo is incredibly slow. Adagio begins to get a bit faster. And andante represents a walking pace of music. Moderato is neither too fast or too slow. Allegro music is played quickly. Vivace, lively and fast. Presto is extremely fast. And then there are two terms that create some variations. Ritardando means the music is gradually becoming slower, and accelerando means the music will gradually become faster. On the right, you see a tool called a metronome. A metronome uses a weighted pendulum to keep a measurement of tempo. The tool makes a clicking sound to indicate beat. A tempo of 60 beats per minute sounds once every second. We know from looking at our chart that a tempo of 60 beats per minute would be labeled adagio. A tempo of 120 beats per minute sounds twice each second. A tempo of 120 beats per minute would be Allegro. So tempo is determined by beat, the pulse of the music. An athlete's resting heartbeat is slow. But when the athlete begins to run quickly, their heartbeat becomes faster to supply the oxygen their body needs. In music, tempo functions much the same way as an athlete's heart rate. A quicker tempo creates more energy. Imagine, for instance, if you're walking, you're moving at a slow tempo, which we've determined would be andante. If you are jogging, you are moving at a much quicker tempo, Allegro. But if you are running from a Tyrannosaurus Rex, you're moving at an even faster tempo, which we would label as Presto. One of the terms that we highlighted was andante, a walking tempo. We're going to listen to a brief excerpt from a cartoon introduction where the music from Peer Gynt, which is called Morning, is used as two cartoon characters awaken to a new day. All right, I'll give you a second to peek for the fun fact before we go to the next slide. And we'll listen to an excerpt that is marked Allegro, a quick tempo. We had a little bit of an internet blip, but I think you were able to hear how quick that piece of music moves. That piece, in fact, you've probably heard it many times before. It is one of Mozart's most famous pieces of music. All right, the final tempo video examines the tempo Presto. Very, very fast tempo. We'll watch this violinist play an excerpt from a violin concerto that uses this tempo to mimic the sounds of a summertime thunderstorm. We've had quite a few of those recently, so you'll probably see the connection quickly. I'm sorry about that. Let's try that again. All right, another little hiccup with the internet. Thanks for staying with me. And again, that was probably still plenty for you to hear how quickly the music is played. Let's summarize what we've learned so far in this lesson. We've established that dynamics refers to the volume of the music. and tempo refers to the speed of the music. Both elements contribute to the energy and general impact of any musical selection. Your student work for this lesson will allow you to fill out a Google form as a record of your answers. You are able to come back to the video if you need help when you're filling out the Google form, or if you just need to watch it again and pause to process what you've learned. Please remember, on the Google form, you must hit the submit button. There were some issues with that last week where many of you had done your work but not hit the submit button, so your answers were never sent to my Google Drive account. So please remember, after you've done all that hard work, to hit the submit button. And I will see you shortly, I hope, in person, as we look at our next 2 elements. And until then, you guys be well and stay safe.